It's a Female Friday where we have two powerhouse women joining us today. Real women, biologically and all. Kristi Hutchinson is continuing to shine a light on the dangerous open border, while Rachel Ray of the Liberty broadcast will share how she got inspired to hit the streets and hear from the American people. It's Friday, September 1st. I'm Kristi Leigh, and this is The Counter Narrative. Well, I just spoke with a friend working in Chicago. The news world is a very small one. We all kind of know each other. And when I'm talking about the news world, I'm talking about like the traditional news, the old school mainstream news that's now been taken over. But I do still have friends that are working in the business at the local level and trying to bloom where they're planted, I suppose. But anyways, just spoke with a friend working in Chicago because I had just gotten done reading a news article from ABC News reporting that a Chicago TV news crew got robbed at gunpoint while reporting on a string of robberies. So such a ridiculous article that a news crew would get robbed while reporting about robberies. I mean, this is just how slum level Chicago has gotten under their current leadership. But I have actually a couple former coworkers that are now working in Chicago. So I contacted one of them to make sure it wasn't that news crew or the ones that I knew. And it was not in this case. But he said that they are going through more safety training, and I was just telling him to be safe. And he's like, well, it's not as bad as you hear, and making excuses for it. So I had to bite my tongue and not go into how, you might want to reevaluate the leadership of that area as to why this is happening, and maybe hold those in power accountable in that situation, because you yourselves putting yourselves out there, gathering the news, or putting yourself in danger. So tempting to, go down that road, but I didn't. I held back for now. And, sometimes I guess it's just got to get bad enough for some folks. So in stark contrast to that, you have Florida, and Ron DeSantis shows how you are supposed to handle crime so these things don't happen. Check it out.
There are reports of people trying to loot down in Steinhatchee. And I've told all of our personnel at the state level, you protect people's property, and we are not going to tolerate any looting in the aftermath of a natural disaster. I mean, it's just ridiculous that you would try to do something like that on the heels of an almost Category 4 hurricane hitting this community. I'd also just remind potential looters that you never know what you're walking into. People have a right to defend their property. This part of Florida, you got a lot of advocates and some proponents of the Second Amendment. And I've seen signs in different people's yards in the past after these disasters. And I would say it's probably here. You loot, we shoot. You never know what's behind that door. If you go break into somebody's house and you're trying to loot, these are people that are going to be able to defend themselves and their families. So I would not do it. We are going to hold you accountable from a law enforcement perspective at a minimum, and it could even be worse than that, depending on what's behind that door. So
it's not like they didn't warn them. You loot, we shoot. I think that's a great deterrent to this crime happening. In other news, from Joe Hoft, a corrupt Obama judge finds Rudy Giuliani guilty because he didn't turn over devices the FBI took from his home. The ruling means this case will now proceed to a trial purely to determine the amount of damages Giuliani is going to have to pay to election workers, Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, which still leaves a ton of questions that was never satisfied exactly what Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss were doing there in Atlanta, Georgia, as they were pulling suitcases and running election ballots over and over again. And, Freeman doing the tour and showing all of the stacks of ballots that still need to be processed. It's all so suspect. And to think that this crazy psycho judge is ordering him to go ahead and pay them when that was never even properly looked at is insane. Buried in that Politico article that goes over this is where it talks about Ted Goodman, a political advisor to Giuliani. He called the ruling a prime example of weaponization of our justice system, where the process is the punishment. He said the decision should be reversed as Mayor Giuliani is wrongly accused of not preserving electronic evidence that was seized and held by the FBI. So again, to review, Rudy Giuliani is getting punished for not turning over evidence that he doesn't have because the FBI already took it. This is so similar to how they did Alex Jones dirty. Basically, the judge in the case here in Texas continued to demand all of these materials that did not exist and then held him in contempt and punished him for not turning over things that didn't exist, like marketing material, like as if InfoWars had marketing material on Sandy Hook theories and commercials specifically on Sandy Hook theories, and the fact that he didn't turn over these marketing materials and commercials that do not exist, he was penalized. It's unbelievable that this is the way that our justice system is allowed to work, that these judges can punish you for things that you don't have or following orders that you physically cannot follow. It's absolutely insane, and they get away with it. From Fox News, we are talking more about the border. The U.S. Border Patrol apprehends more than 7,000 migrants who crossed southern border illegally on Tuesday. This comes weeks after the Biden administration touted a reduction in illegal crossings. So to react to this is Kristi Hutcherson. She's the founder, president, and spokesperson for Women Fighting for America. She's widely recognized as a geopolitical security expert and sought-off speaker with broad connections into the freedom movement. 43 border ops missions, 2,500 plus miles covered on the border. There, she has seen the devastation of illegal immigration, child and human trafficking, organ trafficking, lethal drugs entering the U.S., and so much more she's had to see firsthand as she's covered this. So want to bring her in. Thank you so much for coming in, Kristi. I saw this, and then I saw another article from the American Conservative talking about how America is overrun, it's transformed, that in the end of 4 years of power, the Biden administration will almost surely have admitted over 10 million people into our border. It's interesting, though, I caught a little bit beforehand of you talking about how we see all these articles about the flood of immigrants coming in and just how much we're being You do have big notice. Yes, you do. I'll give you that.
But I do identify and am a woman. But on a serious note, first and foremost, I'm going to kind of correct some things here. The numbers that you're hearing in all of these news articles out of the Border Patrol agents and things like that, these numbers are incorrect. They're false. They're false numbers. So I work with a lot of law enforcement, a lot of U.S. Marshals, Border Patrol agents. I work with private property owners, ranchers, etc. I am the only person in the last, since Biden actually took office 2 weeks into his administration, who has been on the front lines on the border, both southern, northern, western, and east coast borders, because people forget that we have 4 borders around the United States of America. When we look at all of the actual hardcore data, including the gotaways, because that is a number that we have to talk about, we have surmised in reality, we're around 18 million to 20 million by the time that this administration gets out of power. Right now, currently, we're probably more in the realistic realm of around 13 million who have entered this country illegally, on top of the over 50 million that are already here illegally. And Kristi, what I really want to talk about, and I love all of these news organizations and these citizen reporters. We need them. Thank you so much. 15 minutes of fame. But we have to understand there's a more nefarious reason why these borders are open. We have been reporting on this for over 2.5, almost 3 years now, almost 3 years actually, with the borders being open. None of this information that you're starting to hear right now, because they have a bigger platform, is new. If you go back to our original filming lives that we've done since 2 weeks into the Biden administration, you will hear us talking about and uncovering everything you're really hearing now. So this has been taking place for 3 years since Biden took office. Kristi, the other thing that is very concerning, this was premeditated and pre-planned. We have the evidence to prove that the Biden administration was working with NGOs prior to him being sworn into office and setting up facilities, private facilities, prior to him opening up the floodgates of the borders. Alma, Michigan was one of those areas that we fought really hard 2 months into the Biden administration to stop the overturning of a rezoning of a facility to bring in UACs, unaccompanied children. The narrative that's being put out there, it's bad enough as it is. We don't need embellishments. We really need facts and truth, because with facts and truth, we're empowered. And the American citizens, legal ones, need to understand what truly right now, where we are and what they're actually going to feel the pain from the administration's open border policies.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, that is the bigger picture. You've been covering it. And so it's like almost gotten sensationalistic to repeat these things and then not what's happening. You talked a little bit about Mayorkas. There's been over and over again, we've heard that because of the crisis, we should impeach him, but then nothing is done. No one, what is stopping them from impeaching him with such a failure at the border, do you think?
Political grandstanding, that's why. The inability to act on the GOP side really speaks volumes clearly to where their allegiance really lies. And that's what we need to discuss. For me, this is not a political situation. This is a constitutional situation that we have on our hands. We have also an administration who is actively engaging in rape, murder, drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, terrorism, terrorists, actual known terrorists, that by the thousands, by the way, influxing into our nation. Iran, PLA, Hezbollah. This is very serious. These are actual treasonous acts against the United States of America and the legal citizens, because that is their duty, is to defend and protect America, not the illegals, and certainly not the terrorists.
You mentioned the NGOs, and so as long as we're going to talk about sensationalism and like conspiracy theories versus fact, how nefarious does this go? Because I'll tell you what, when my husband and I went and visited the border and we saw what was happening at Catholic Charities, we just had the worst disgusted feeling there. It was the weirdest, most unorganized thing we'd ever witnessed. We saw people all tatted up saying they were there to pick up kids and take them to like an Indian reservation. We're like, what is happening here? This is Catholic Charities? I mean, that's just one. I'm sure you know more of the other NGOs. I mean, how bad is this? Would you go as far as to say that the Biden administration is aiding and abetting child sex slavery and trafficking on that level, perhaps through these NGOs?
I'd even go further. I'll go further than that. They're actively engaging in child trafficking, human trafficking, weapons trafficking, murder, and quite frankly, rape. They have it on their hands, period. Go and talk to any law enforcement officer who works the border. Go and talk to the numerous ranchers who we've been on. I have pictures on my phone right now of dead bodies, violently mutilated dead bodies. This is a reality and this is real. They're just not reporting this. And when you go to put this information out on my platforms, they will shut me down really quickly because they don't want the truth out there. You've got people falling also from the walls. I have a photograph of a woman, a young woman, who climbed one of the walls and fell to her death. She got entangled in the barbed wire and was completely butchered by the razor wire. This goes on day in and day out. We have bodies who people who can't make it through the desert, who succumb to the elements. We have rape trees, the Mexican highway. I've been in stash houses where they're sacrificing animals and some human remains. You name it, I've seen it. We've got slaughterhouses in Mexico that are taking these individuals, children and women, earmarked to be slaughtered for their organs, including their hearts and their livers. This is going on. The Biden administration is very well briefed on this. You can even go into the intelligence reports. We have a national intelligence agency. They put out reports every single year, several times a year. You've got to know where to go look. You delve through these files and you can look to see where they have been following all of this, not just, by the way, for the last couple of years, but specifically the terrorist movement with Hezbollah and Iran's Revolutionary Guard into the United States, using Venezuela as the conduit. It's not a mistake, Kristi, that you're seeing this massive uptick in the last year of Venezuelans coming over our southern borders. Make no mistake, a lot of them are not from Venezuela. The Maduro, the president of Venezuela, just got back from, in March, meeting with the new Iranian leader, and they now have a accord, and they've had an accord for decades, to where people from Iran's Revolutionary Guard and others fly from Tehran into Caracas, Venezuela, and they've emboldened and empowered who? Hezbollah. They've set up Hezbollah, Central and South America, Bolivia. I can tell you right now, Kristi, we just got back from Central and South America. There are warehouses right now in undisclosed locations in Bolivia that have major Iranian weapon systems, including military drones that can strike the United States of America. We have a very serious problem on our hands. This administration knows it. Our intelligence agencies, they know it. So if you know it and they're still keeping the borders open, my question to everybody in Washington, D.C., why are you still allowing it to happen, knowing that we are going to have imminent threats and attacks on our soil here in the United States? Why are you allowing the collapse of America right in front of our eyes? Why are you allowing murder and rape to take place to children and women? Why are you allowing the exploitation? Well, I can tell you why, because they have an agenda, and that agenda is to bring down America to her knees.
Now, one of the things that you were talking about there about the woman that got caught up on the wall and fell to her death. Now, the Biden administration would say that, well, that's because we have like a wall there with barbaric and barbed wire. I mean, they've gone so far as to bring litigation with the other efforts to close the border. So they'd say that the ways that Texas is trying to close those areas of the border is the reason for this barbarism, as opposed to just welcoming them in and welcoming this crime to happen. So tell me what's going on with that argument and how that litigation is moving forward.
Well, if any politician's mouth is moving, they're liars. First and foremost, you can go all the way back to let's just take the Democratic presidents, Clinton specifically and Obama. They both funded the wall. They both gave money to have the wall because walls actually save lives. Closed borders actually statistically can prove it. The data is there, saves lives. It also stops the exploitation of children and women from being raped along these treks to get to the United States of America. But by the way, over 81% of everybody coming over the border are young single adult males of fighting age. If they're fleeing for their lives, right, and they want to have asylum, why are they leaving the most precious things to them behind? That's their women and their children, right? They're leaving them to make this trek to come here. Why? It's all bull BS. Okay, quite frankly. Right now in Texas, this is a very serious lawsuit that's going on by our federal government. Our DOJ is suing the state of Texas to remove those barriers. By the way, unprecedentedly, the country of Mexico, the president of Mexico, is weighing in and really strong arming our government and our president, and he's going along with it. They are trying to remove those barriers. Those barriers are actually saving lives. The only thing that they're doing, they're funnel this illegal movement into our nation, an influx to a zone where at least it gives the Border Patrol agents and the police officers and the sheriffs to defend who's coming into our border. At least we can maybe get some eyes on these people, vet them a little bit, even though we're not really vetting them, to see who they are and if they have ill will and intent towards America. But no, this administration wants to halt all of that because they want to bring America to their knees, period.
What is the motivation though? Because I think again, your average person can't get their mind wrapped around, well, why would our leadership, why would our government, no matter if they're a Democrat or Republican, why would they want to allow things that would destroy our country? I don't get it. So how do you answer a question like that?
I can answer it really simply. When I worked in DC for over 18 years, so I'm coming from a place where I understand exactly who these people are. I worked in the defense industry. That's all I'm going to tell you. Is I was in the defense industry. I've been in the Pentagon, been in places in DC, had meetings, etc. The reason why: greed, power. It's really that simple. If you look at the politicians who've been in office for decade after decade after decade, they come in with a certain amount of wealth and they leave multi-millionaires. That is not by mistake, that is by design. So a lot of these politicians, unfortunately, they become corrupt one way or the other, whether somebody gets something on them or whether they've just sold out for their own personal gain and their family's personal gain. You're looking at it right now with the Bidens, for example. He's been a 50-year politician, and he literally is bought and paid for by the Chinese Communist Party. Make no mistake. So anybody else who's in office, whether you're a senator, whether you're in Congress, or whether you're part of the deep state or in the White House, you have to ask yourself this question, America. Have their policies backed up what they say to you? Have their words equated into your sovereignty, your freedom, your liberties, and protecting you and your family? If you cannot answer without hesitation a yes, then I will tell you that those politicians are not in the best interest for you or America or the Constitution. We need to replace these individuals. And again, the founding fathers gave us that roadmap. We need to do it legally. We need to do it peacefully, but we must, make no mistake, do it. It is our duty. They've sold us out. They are owned by foreign adversaries. Follow the money trail.
And like we talked about before, there's some of the same characters that are always there on the border and showing the problem and hyping it up. But then we're left with all this outrage and nowhere to funnel it, because we have some of the GOP that will constantly threaten, again, they'll constantly threaten to do something about it, constantly threaten to impeach Mayorkas and all this other stuff, but it's just lip service. It's just like feeding our outrage, and it feels good for a moment, but nothing happens. So what is a realistic thing that we can actually do to make a difference? Just me, like people like me, like what can we do?
Well, America, you're not going to like my answer. Stop being complacent and lazy. You're actually going to have to sacrifice something, and that means getting off your couch taking maybe some time off of work, even though it's not convenient. And you need to show up, quite frankly. At this point, the only way the borders are going to be shut down is if 1 million people show up and lock arms. I'm going to be honest with you. No phone call, no email is going to do it. We need to show up in the millions and shut our borders down. I know some fantastic sheriffs who love this country and who love this nation who would welcome you showing up in their town and stopping what is happening at our borders. And if you are interested in actually doing something, not just being venting about it or tweeting about it on your fingers with your computer, you can email us. Go to Women Fighting for America and tell us you want to go down to the border. If there's enough of you, we will get in contact with our sheriff friends and we will arrange a trip down to the border to lock arms peacefully and stop this invasion. Make no mistake, this invasion is going to affect you. It's coming very soon. There is a plan in place by this administration, by the powers to be, the deep state and others, to stop the locomotive that's coming, that they know would be a replacement of the values that they've instilled with real values, constitutional values, and they cannot allow that to happen. So America, you better step up and you better get involved now. You know, my family fled Stalin, Kristi. I'm a Russian Jew on my mother's side. They got the knock on the door from the Nazis and from Stalin, from the communist. And you know what? Some of them fled. My grandfather and my great-grandfather got out alive. Other families weren't so lucky. That is coming here on our soil. We have film and footage of FEMA camps that are set up. This is a reality. This is real. I'm not sensationalizing this. I'm a straight shooter. I'm giving it to you straight. We can show you the video footage. You've got Border Patrol agents who have facilities set up along rail lines, unauthorized cars, rail cars coming in at all hours of the night without a manifesto. What is on those? We have a very serious problem in America. And if you don't get your head out of the sand and engage yourself, and if you don't want to be boots on the ground, fine, you can do something. Fund the fight. They are well funded. You know, I always say, I'm putting all of my money, all of my heart, all of my time, and including my life. I have bounties on my head currently. I have full-time security because they don't want me to tell you the truth and what you actually need to do to save your republic called America. You have to now engage. I can't hold your hand, but you can help be part of the solution. Go donate. It is not tax deductible. I do not take C3 money. 100% of your money goes to the fight. I do not take a salary. You can look that up. It's full disclosure. I fight because I love my country and I love my nation. I fight because my family weren't so lucky on my mother's side. I fight because I'm a mom. I fight because I'm a patriot. And if we don't stand up now, in this moment in time in history, we will not leave a free world to the next generation.
Well, it's definitely the thing that they're most afraid of. What you said, like millions locking arms and coming at us. And you can tell just how afraid they are of that with the weaponization of the judicial system. I mean, we just had a sentencing of Joe Biggs for his involvement on January 6th. They were able to upgrade what he did to a terrorist charge. Meanwhile, we have actual terrorists welcomed into our country daily on the border. And, you know, 20 plus years for his involvement on January 6th. And then the next one up is Enrico, who wasn't even there on January 6th. But this is the way that I think they've successfully, in some cases, intimidated people from coming together, because look at what they will do to you. How can people have courage when they've seen that people that just showed up on January 6th to redress their grievance of what looked like a nefarious election, when they see them just being paraded, continued arrests, and now getting thrown in prison for 20 plus years. I mean, it is an effective deterrent. People are literally saying, I would do this, but I'll see what they do to you. So how can we fight this method?
You know, that's a really good question. And I'm going to give two solutions to this. Wherever you live, we have a plan on our website. We have resources on our website. One of the most important things anybody can do is find out who your sheriffs are. The sheriffs are the most important law enforcement, the highest level of law enforcement in the land, including over the DOJ. So if you have a really firm relationship with your local sheriffs and your deputies, which I highly recommend you meet with them at least every 2 weeks, you support them in everything that they're doing. And this is really important. You find out where they constitutionally land and if they're constitutionally sound. Because when the FBI or when the Department of Justice or whoever comes knocking on your door to illegally extract you from your home, that sheriff can be the one to stand in the way. And so that is really important and key that we have that relationship with the sheriffs too. Get in like-minded community. There are more of us than there are of them. When we all say enough is enough, that's when it actually stops. But I can tell you, I travel all over the country and I do not see enough people showing up, standing up, speaking up, because that's what they're afraid of. January 6th was not about Donald J. Trump. January 6th was a fear mechanism because they were scared. They realized, holy moly, look at how many people showed up peacefully because the gig was up, whether you believe the election was stolen or not. We have enough evidence to prove that something nefarious took place, and they've done everything to hide all of the evidence. Whenever you're looking at anything in law enforcement or conspiracy theory or whatever you want to say it, you can either prove something or you disprove something. And when they hide the facts from the American people and they suppress being able to get any kind of evidence or even look at the possible evidence, they're hiding something. Why? Because they know that there was something wrong and they will be caught, right? So January 6th was also about the fact that they didn't want you to ever gather like that again, because they know that there's power in that. They can't continue their plans if millions of people are singing to the same drum. Why do you think that they're trying to literally separate us in every way that they can and keep us not unified? Whether it's racial tensions, LGBTQ, CRT, the parents, weaponizing the school systems and the justice system. This is all to evoke emotions to keep you separated and silent. We have to stop falling for this, America. If you guys get together and we formulate a coalition of freedom-loving, peaceful Americans, there will be no stopping us. They will lose. They will. But we have to be brave enough to stand up. We have to be brave enough to stand up. I know it's scary. Believe me, I've been doing this for over 4 years now. And I'm asked all the time, aren't you afraid? I'm more afraid not to. I'm more afraid to not stand and speak for truth and liberty and freedom than to allow this country to be turned over to a communist, fascist, Marxist government, because that is a country that I don't want to live in.
Absolutely. So good. I did not want to interrupt you. I just wanted you to finish your whole thought because that was so good. And if you want more of Kristi Hutchinson, you can listen to her show On the Front Lines with Kristi Hutchinson. It's Sundays at 1 p.m. and Tuesdays at 4 p.m. on Brighteon.tv. Thank you so much, Kristi. I feel like we covered a lot, and people just need to digest all of that and get fired up, right?
You know what? If you don't fire up, no one's going to fire you up. And you know what? If freedom and liberty doesn't fire you up, I don't want to be in America anymore, because you know what? I'll tell you, Kristi, I'm asked all the time by leaders around the world, where is America? And I tell them all the time, we've become lazy and complacent, and we are just so used to freedom. Well, when that freedom's taken away, it's going to be too late to get her back. So please stand up.
Yeah, the time is now. We cannot delay any further. Thank you so much, Kristi Hutchinson. We look forward to having you back. Keep us updated with anything happening on the border or anything more that we can do. Thank you.
Thank you so much.